All right, guys, what is up? Welcome back to the channel for a brand new Pokemon card investing and collecting video. Today, we're going over 10 cards that have huge potential for a price increase when graded in a PSA 10. Now, one of the things that I've been learning since coming into this hobby is the best way to, I guess, gain value in your cards is to know what you need to grade, which cards are worth grading, which cards are worth just keeping in a binder and selling raw, and how to determine that. So, for anyone that's new, like myself, and doesn't understand how the grading process works, I want to quickly explain it to you guys. And if anyone that's more experienced, can correct me on anything that I might get wrong, please do so down in the comments. However, we're also going to go over 10 cards that have huge potential in grading them to raise in value. So some of these cards are, well, pretty much all of these cards are around $20 or less with over $100, some over $200-300 in value when graded in a PSA 10. So with that said, make sure you leave a like on this video if you find it informative and helpful. And if you guys want to leave a comment down below as to which card on this set list is your favorite, I would love to know as well, because I'll let you know mine in this video too. So basically how grading works is you submit your cards to a grading company like PSA, BGS, CGC, one of these companies that is then going to determine, I guess, the condition of your card. So how is the centering? How are the corners on the card? How is the surface? They're all kind of things that they look at to determine, is this card in the best possible condition for us to give it a 10? And these are all things that they look at, and they'll come back and basically send it back to you inside like an acrylic slab with your grade on the top of the slab as well. And, one type of people would do this to protect their card if it's just like a card that they really like. Some people do it for monetary gain so they can sell off the slabs for more money, which is kind of what we're looking at in this video. And some people just want their coolest cards in their collection to be inside a slab with a perfect grade. And, there is a whole sealed collector, or not sealed collector, but a slab collector out there, that likes these things to be pristine condition over a long period of time. So that, in sense, kind of adds value to the card because, yes, it's protected basically forever. And that's going to add a ton of value from what could be a very cheap card to them being very expensive. So with that said, we're going to jump over onto my computer screen here, and I'm going to show you 10 cards that are super cheap right now that you could grade. And if they get a PSA 10, they could potentially up to 10 times the amount of value that they are worth. So let's flip over here real quick. Starting off with the Skarmory from Surging Sparks. Now, Surging Sparks kind of, was the beginning of this new Pokemon spike in popularity. So I don't know if it was to do with the release of Pokemon Pocket, like TCG Pocket, that kind of just after or just around the time that Surging Sparks release kind of spiked everything up. But the Skarmory is really interesting. I think it's a gorgeous artwork. This looks absolutely beautiful. And the crazy thing about it is this illustration rare boom that we've had in the last year has really started to spike the overall value that some of these cards can potentially get. So check your collections. If you've got this Skarmory, I'm going to show you something crazy. So market price on this is $12.87, as you guys can see down here. This has actually dropped off. This was originally a $15 card, went down to 11. Now it's kind of balanced out at about 12. If you have a copy of this card that you think might be able to be graded in a perfect 10, your corners are good, there's no edge wear, the surface is good, it's centered, submit it to, PSA for grading. And I'm going to use PSA because that's kind of the broadest one that people go for here. And it's I guess the most well-known out of the grading companies. PSA 10 prices on eBay, and this is the American eBay, so this is US dollars, $147, $173, $190. These are sold listings. So these PSA 10s have sold for this price. This one went for $215, which is crazy. 175, 160. So for what is a card that you can get for, $10 to $15, you pay $15 to get the card graded. If it comes back a PSA 10, you've then able to turn around and sell it on eBay for close to $150. I would say pretty safely $150 actually. And it's like that with a lot of the cards in this video. So I'll show you some more examples. Slowpoke from Scarlet Violet base. This is such a cool card. It's just like, it's kind of goofy, and we know Slowpoke is that sort of dopey Pokemon. And he's just kind of, I don't know, sticking out from this corner shop or this garage door, whatever it might be. I like this card. It's cool. It's cool. And it's actually on the rise. So this card was $7.88 at its lowest when it first released. So back in October 2022, it was, sorry, October 22nd, not even that long ago. This is a 3-month chart. October 22nd. So a couple months ago, 3 months ago, this was $7.88. It has now grown up to be, I mean, it maxed out at like sort of $20, $21. The market price now is $20.63. So a $20 card, again, you pick this up, you grade it, PSA 10. Look at the ridiculousness of this. $350, $400, $350. Someone scored a bargain here with 172. 217, 250, 250, 175. That's a bargain right there. 175, 175. So you can see like even these older ones that sold, there's not a ton there. And the reason that this is getting such a high price in a PSA 10 is that the population is really low. It's really hard to grade this card in a PSA 10. And that's one thing that we will see a theme on throughout this video is a lot of these Scarlet Violet base set, or even, you know, some of the more recent Scarlet Violet sets, they're really hard to grade in a perfect 10, and that's skyrocketing the value. So if you have Slowpoke, it might be worth checking as well. Sticking with Scarlet Violet base, Drowsy. Drowsy from Scarlet Violet base is this kind of weird like art style, and I really like it. It's reminiscent of, I forget what the painting is, but there's like a super famous painting that looks like this sort of art style as well. Someone in the comments will know. But again, this card was $13 in the middle of December. So like just over a month ago, this was a $13 card. It jumped to 34 and now it's down to 31. So if you have this card, or you can potentially get this card for cheap, definitely, if it's got good centering and everything, look at grading it, because again, $387, $387, $304. Like this one was bids. That's 24 bids on that. You know, someone, obviously this one's not graded with PSA, but again, still a ton of profit from grading this card. 330, 230, 254. Like it's just ridiculous what these cards are able to get when their raw price is actually so cheap. So let's jump to the next one, Ralts. And this kind of goes to say with the whole Ralts evolution line, Ralts, Curlier, and Gardevoir in this set, they're all kind of along the same lines. I didn't want to include all three of them, so I figured I'd just put Ralts in there. Now, you know, a $25 card was $15 a couple of months ago. PSA 10, 275, 240, 240, 240, 240. So I'd say it's probably around the 240 mark. That 275 is a bit of an outlier, although there is a 262 there. So anywhere from like 230 to 270 on the Ralts, which is crazy. Now, the next two are my favorite in this list. Scissor from Obsidian Flames. Super underrated card. Has only just started gaining some popularity, but 3 months ago, a $3 card. Ridiculous. I love Scissor. Scissor is so cool. Like I grew up Gen 1. I loved Scyther when I first saw him in the show. I thought he was so cool, and I didn't think he could get cooler. And then obviously getting into Gen 2, Scissor came out and was the evolution of Scyther, which was so sick. But yeah, it's even now like a $10 card. $10 card on a PSA 10, 165, 140, 150, 124. So again, over 10xing the amount of value that you can get for Scissor. So I love the artwork on this card. I think it's gorgeous. I can't talk about it enough, so I'm going to keep it short here. But this is just insanely cool to me. The next one, Ninetales, sticking with Obsidian Flames again. This is one of the most beautiful cards I think I've ever seen. This Ninetales artwork is fantastic. And if you don't like this card, I don't understand why. Because this thing is so good looking. Like Ninetales has always been one of those like real elegant Pokemon, but can be like really powerful when you need it. I just think this artwork reflects that so perfectly. Just the forest and the colors and everything. So nice. But again, $12 card 3 months ago has bumped up to 22 now. But if you go to a PSA 10, 270, 175, 250, 290, 255, 200, 250. So everything bar that one sale is over $200. So if you're able to grade this in a PSA 10, huge potential. Now, moving on from Ninetales, I kind of want to get into a couple of honorable mentions. These aren't part of the 10, but these are just cards that I think could have potential to gain some value. Now, this is just from an observation. The Evolving Skies, Flareon, Vaporeon, and Jolteon, not the alt arts. Obviously, we know they're valuable. We know they're going to rock it. But these regular VMAX cards, they're all under $10. So I've actually just picked up the Flareon and the Vaporeon. I'm waiting to find a Jolteon at a good price to purchase it. I usually buy through eBay out here in Australia. It's just a bit easier. But I was managed to get the Vaporeon at my local game store recently. And that was $10. So, and that's Australian. So $7 US, something like that. But again, if you look at these right now, ignore this first one because that's the prize pack series. But again, they're around like $50 to $60 graded in a PSA 10 right now. So you can even buy a raw slab. But I feel like with the popularity of prismatic evolutions, that the price on these is just going to go up. And it's the same with all your alt arts as well. They're all going to go up purely because of the fact that no one can get prismatic evolutions right now. So everyone's going to be looking backwards. I mean, Evolving Skies is expensive too, but this is a cheap way to, if you love the evolutions, add these to your collection. There's a pretty good likeliness that these will go up in price because of how much everyone loves the evolutions. So a cheap way to add these to something for a long-term hold. So just a few honorable mentions there that I figured I would throw into this video. Next up, Paradox Rift has the Vanillish. I pulled this card out of like one of my first ever Paradox Rift packs, and I still have it to this day. So I'm planning on submitting that for grading as well. This is a $9, well, $7 market price card. There's a few on here for $9. So it's definitely on the upwards trend. It was $4 back in October. And then if you go to eBay, excuse me, if you go to eBay, $70. So again, you're 10xing your money on this one. 71, 73, 61, 55. So it looks like the most recent sold ones in a PSA 10 are getting more money for them. So it is going up. So something to keep an eye on there. Not obviously the biggest difference in this list. But again, when you have a card that's, you know, a $6 or $7 card going for $70 in a PSA 10, you're still 10 timesing your money. So the next one is the Steelix from Paradox Rift as well. I love this artwork. I think this is so cool. There's something about like Pokemon doing real life things that is just so interesting to me. And honestly, the Steelix is really, really sick on the construction site, helping out the workers, working as kind of like a lift for these guys to get up and down from the scaffolding. I think that's, yeah, it's just a really cool, like fun card. Again, I was talking before about like Slowpoke being like the dopey kind of fun card. This one's more of like a serious fun card, and if that makes sense. But Steelix just helping out, man, which is really cool. And again, for an $18 card that is now 25-ish, yeah, 25.36. If you grab this one and you get it in a PSA 10, 127, 182, 140, 130, 100. So again, over the $100 mark, easy. And, you know, it's just a cool artwork. I personally have this card as well. I'm going to grade it and I'm just going to keep it in my collection because I think it's sick. The next two kind of bounce off each other. So it's Scarlet Violet Base. Again, I think Scarlet Violet Base is so underrated. There are so many really nice artworks. And in terms of value and PSA 10 gradings, there's so many cards in there that you can grade and get such a good price for as well. So, the next two are Koraidon and Miraidon. So the special illustration rares, again, a little bit harder to pull, but if you buy the single, $17 for Koraidon, $21 for Miraidon, or $18 if you're going off market price. And then the Koraidon's at $14 on market price. So again, less than $20, you can pick these cards up. And the PSA 10s, they're nothing crazy. So you're looking at 80, 65, 70, 80, 80, 80, around that sort of mark for Koraidon. And then Miraidon actually getting a little bit more. So 90, 87, 75, 75, you know, 85 down here again. So either of these cards for what are, you know, legendary Pokemon, super cheap. Grab them for $20. You might already have them. I personally already have Koraidon. So that's going to get submitted in my next PSA submission. But again, just an easy way to flip and get some money out of these singles that you may not necessarily like. And me personally, I'm not a huge fan of Koraidon or Miraidon as Pokemon themselves. But again, I see an opportunity here where I can, grade this card, sell it for 90 bucks and purchase something for my collection that I actually really want. And that's kind of what Pokemon collecting is all about. It's about your own personal collection. What do you like? What do you want to have in there? What do you think is going to be the coolest thing for you to look back on in 10, 15, 20 years and go, yeah, I really love that. I remember when I picked that up. For me, Koraidon is not one of those things. Like, I remember pulling the Koraidon card out of a pack with my partner when we were opening some packs, but that's one of those things where this Pokemon to both of us doesn't really mean too much because I grew up with Gen 1. So this newer stuff isn't as interesting to me as some of the earlier stuff. So again, this is just a rough idea. These are 10 cards that have huge value if you do grade them and score in a PSA 10. It might be worth checking your binder, going back, having a flip through, seeing if you've got any of these sitting there that you probably think are just worth nothing. Whereas if you pay 15 bucks per card to get these graded, you potentially have huge room for profit in actually doing this. So something to think about. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, if you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 1,000 subs, which is really exciting. So thank you again for all the support. And with that said, I will see you guys in the next video.